All right, let's talk about the objectives that you're going to be tested on. This is all listed in the Google Professional Cloud Architect webpage under what is called the exam guide. This is going to address the sections that you're going to be tested on and what exactly would be the specific subjects you'll be tested on. A lot of the exam, as we spoke about earlier, is going to be focused on case studies. So out of 50 questions, approximately 25 or so will be case study questions. That was the new Cloud Architect exam that was released in November. With that said, you need to be able to read and decipher a case study and try to determine how would I optimize cost. What would be the business use case? For example, if you get a case study question and it's a development-based organization and they want to migrate from on-prem to Google Cloud, what would be the best way to do that as efficiently as possible? Now, what generally happens in the case study questions is generally, at least this is what I've noticed, is they don't just address one of these areas. Usually they'll say refer to the case study and address what the CIO is saying, or address how to reduce costs, and that would be cost optimization. For example, what would be ways that you could measure KPIs or return on investment? Again, usually the case studies are going to have at least one, if not two or three of these requirements. So you'll look at different services. For example, cost optimization is commonly an area you'll see like in the cloud storage sort of focus questions. Would you want to have your data on nearline or should it be on regional storage? And again, if you understand, the cost structure between cloud storage and nearline, cold line, regional, multi-regional, then you should do fine. However, what they typically do is not just cost optimization, but maybe they'll throw in, having integration as a requirement, or they'll throw in specific KPI requirements. You need to look at, how does everything meet? For example, cloud storage is typically used as like what I call the on-ramp to Google Cloud. And, it might be the right use case for some of what you're doing, but maybe cloud data store is better for your mobile data. Or perhaps if you have relational data, you want to go look at Cloud SQL. A lot of this comes into play. Okay, next one. Again, technical requirements. So you see technical requirements and business requirements. On the case study questions, you'll notice that they'll have business requirements listed and they'll have technical requirements listed. When we get to the case study section, we're going to get into that. Some of the other considerations could be around designing resources, and that would be network storage or compute resources. Now, again, I'm not going to go through every line, but just two things I want to point out here. The first thing is you will absolutely need to know how to create a VPC, design peering, how to create projects, and be able to have your different organizations in your company create a CI pipeline, for example, how to network your containers, basically. Another thing that would come into play would be around, for example, do I want to place my data, which is, for example, relational data, on, for example, BigQuery or Bigtable, or should I put it on Cloud SQL or Cloud Spanner? Again, it's all really coming down to mapping your requirements to the right products for this exam. Migration planning. future solution improvements. I'm going to go section 2 now. I won't read all of this. I'm going to speed this up a little bit. Y'all can definitely take some time to review and make sure that you sort of understand all these objectives. Now, most of these objectives will be covered pretty well during the course. These were updated in November, so you are looking at the most recent objectives that was published by Google. Number 2, manage and provision solution infrastructure. Basically, after you design, you have to manage it and provision it, deploy it. Again, they want you to know how to connect on-prem to Google Cloud, how to migrate from on-prem to Google Cloud. A lot of questions around those areas. Managing growth. For example, there's lifecycle management capabilities with cloud storage. Why would you want to use that? How would you consider applying that? Maybe you want to move stuff from cold line back to nearline or nearline down to cold line, whatever that scenario gives you, review that appropriately. Compute, again, a lot of this comes into play. Do I want to deploy Compute Engine in a preemptible instance or a standard? Now, preemptible for those AWS friends are similar to a spot instance. If it's preemptible, you're not going to want to use this for production, really. It's going to be online at 24 hours at most. Provisioning with different services like Terraform and Puppet. You just want to understand how these tools can enable, for example, different DevOps, capabilities. Using Kubernetes engine is important. And then we have security, compliance for section 3. Section 4. This is actually, let me just glance here again. Yeah. So this area here was actually, it seemed like it was pretty heavily tested as compared to maybe section 5. But again, that was just my thought. A lot of it comes down into DevOps and development. It really, again, they don't really state it, but it really comes down to deploying an application in Google Cloud and what would be the best way to do it. Most cost-effective way, most efficient way. And then managing the implementation. Now, this is more development, but again, it sort of, overlaps to a degree. You're still talking about CI pipelines. You're still talking about SDLC, DevOps. But with section 5, it sort of focuses more around what I would sort of consider a little bit more technical details. 4 is more high level. 5 is more like, how would I deploy a container? And what would be the best way to do it? For example, you could use kube commands with Google Cloud Shell. On the exam, some of these questions appeared to be more, not case study questions, but more, would I do this or should I do that? What would be a testing framework I could use? Also, Stackdriver sort of plays into that as well. And then 6 is basically keeping track of what's going on. This is your monitoring, logging, alerting, troubleshooting, etc. And then these are the case studies down here. We'll review each of these when we get to the case study section. We're going to spend a lot of time on case study questions because it's 50% of the exam. We have to give it a lot of time. All right, let's move on.